It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, June 10th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is talking scouting combine.
It was a grueling day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. You can find our show over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will be getting into Russ's report from the scouting combine. Always love having a firsthand report of what went down there. The Stanley Cup Final has begun finally. Florida won game one pretty handily. And I think, that defense we talked about showed up.
Yeah, the defense showed up. Bob definitely had some big saves. Edmonton's in trouble. They just, Stuart Skinner can't match Bob. And if they can't break through Florida's defense, that's why I picked them at 5. That's why I was aggressive, because as good as Edmonton's offense could be, I mean, you saw McDavid got hit in the chin. He already had a bloody chin
Yeah.
first game. You knew that was going to be part of the game plan. They were not up to the physical task. They had to have known it was going to be like that to start the series, to try and wear them down like they've worn down everybody else. So they could be in trouble.
Yeah, we will see. Game two is tonight. They did reveal the cities where the Four Nations tournament next season will be played. They said one American city and one Canadian city, but now we know it's Boston and Montreal, which honestly I was hoping for over the usual Toronto Buffalo, because that's boring, honestly. So
Yeah, no,
much
I
stuff
thought.
takes place there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fine. It's easy to get to Boston for people in the States. Montreal's not
Yeah.
bad either. So yeah, I think it's a good choice. I think those are good markets. I think people will enjoy this. It's a shame it's only 4 nations, but it'll still be fun.
Yeah, I think so. Looking forward to seeing what Flyers may or may not be on those squads. And it should be a lot of fun. Looking at the scouting combine, Russ, you were there. And I think that we talked about it last week and previewed, the whys and whats of it. But what were your big takeaways now that it's all said and done?
Well, the first big takeaway was Utah seemed like they had the most guys out to dinner for that week. Just seemed like there was, and I unofficially counted in my head like 5 or 6. So they may
Hmm.
have taken out the top 6 picks, in their mind, because that's what they're picking, right? 6th, I think. So
Right.
so they may have done just that, which means they have a pretty good budget, because I don't think Arizona would have done that in the past. Actually, matter of fact, I know they wouldn't have. So that's one thing. And then the Leafs have this little edge because everybody seemed to be flying out of Toronto, so they invited everybody to like a thing before they flew out. And whether that's a dinner or not, who knows? And that's a good way to gather information. So I feel like that's going to give them a little bit of an edge, and it's a nice thing to do for the kids too. Don't get me wrong, but it's always, there's always a reason. There's always something behind it. So I took out those 2 things, and then from working the equipment, I haven't had a chance to see any of the results, but you do talk to the guys and they kind of look at see how they did and everything. And EJ Emery broke the long jump record. I don't know what the number was, but he almost jumped out of the whole station. So I was told they're probably going to have to make a new station next year, make it further because of EJ Emery. So that was something. Uh, the most amount of pull-ups I heard was 15. I can't remember which player told me, but 15 is quite a lot. Back, I want to say back in 7th, 8th grade, I did about 17. but I also only weighed 100 pounds. I was pretty good at pull-ups, but these guys are 200-pound guys doing it, or 180, so it's a lot harder. But I understand how hard it is just to do 15. So that was good. There was a lot of pull-up talk. I brought up Sam Bennett a couple times to some guys. Players wanted to do well on the pull-ups. They really did. That was something that was a thing because I guess they felt like they didn't want to get admonished like Bennett did back in the day. Now I'm being told the pronunciation is Will Skahan. We'll see if that's correct or not. Everybody sort of seems to change it, but anyhow, we've talked about Will before, and or maybe it's Skahan. It's one of the two, but I think I heard the first one. He told me he did great on there was two different weight benches. One where there was like a predetermined weight, and they only wanted you to kind of do it like 3 times, and then one where they put on more weight. And he couldn't give me the number, but he said he did great. And looking at the size of him, I'm going to guess he was probably one of the top guys for that because he looked really good. Other than that, from physical standpoint, Cade Lindstrom is just unbelievable. Like bigger than Quentin Byfield, bigger than Keandre Miller already at that age, as far as being physically fit and having some muscle on him. So seems like the back's okay, and if the back's okay, I don't see how he gets past 4. So that was nice to see for him. The other thing I caught on a side conversation, and we'll just say this is conjecture, but I think it's probably true. You know how Max Celebrini's dad is with the Golden State Warriors. Seems like the younger Celebrini, not only hung out with the guys like everybody says, but maybe did a little more with them. Maybe did a little training with them too. That's the
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the unofficial thing that I was hearing, and I believe it. I believe it. I think they were trying to downplay it at the event, but I could see it happening because why not? I mean, he's dad's part of the team. They were out there, yeah. So I think there's a chance because if you look at Celebrini, he is really pretty well put together. So I think it happened.
So, as far as the pull-ups go that you were talking about, Zeev Bayum won that one with 16.
Oh, he had 16.
Eh,
So the guy who told me 15. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Lucas Fisher had 15 and was in second place in
That's
that
Yeah, that's
competition.
Yuri Fisher's kid, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and EJ Emery did have a very successful, physical test of everything. So, yeah, his vertical jump was 27.23 inches, and no arm jump was 23.57 inches.
Yeah, he's a
So
physical
that is
athlete.
not,
His dad played in the
yeah,
CFL, and so yeah,
yeah.
he's a physical athlete.
And then his horizontal jump, which is I think the one you were talking about,
Yeah.
with the standing long jump was
Yep.
123 inches. So, um, maybe he
Crazy.
did himself some good, but it's definitely his leg strength and his core
That's gonna
was,
get the attention. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. So I think he definitely seemed to make an impression. I think, the bench press is always really interesting to me for a
Yeah.
hockey player because arm strength, you wouldn't think is important in the grand scheme of things because it's all about your legs and skating and whatnot. But like when you're a physical player, I think there's something to it in terms of that upper body. And it's also in terms of being able to, hold on to the stick appropriately and get power in your shots and all of that.
Well, I
So
think when you're
I'm
in the corner and you're
yeah,
protecting the puck, the upper body helps.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So Cole Boudoin
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
was was the winner of that one. And he's somebody that's like a late first rounder kind
He
of
did
right
look
now.
big. He did look big to me, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something to keep an eye on from the physical test perspective. But as far as, some of the other top guys, now some of them weren't there. So, there's something to be said for that. But I think that, a lot of the like second, third rounders, this was their opportunity to shine.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think, Emery definitely did himself some good. I'm sure Skahan did himself some good. I think, somebody else who I just took a video of that looked like he did well, but I never saw the result of, um, was Brandon Pridham, Jack Pridham, sorry. His dad is the ASGM for the Leafs, Brandon Pridham. So he looked like he had some serious hops, and he had a really good year in the BCHL. And so we'll see how that all works out. But yeah.
Yeah, he was the top squat jump
So
guy,
that may have
and
been what I
then
caught on video. Okay.
yeah, and so then he was in third in the no arm jump and seventh in the vertical jump. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that is pretty good overall for
So that's something
that
to watch
style
because
of.
he seems like he's a developing guy. So we'll see. I think that probably helped him a little. Well, time will tell on that one.
All right. Well, we'll get into more combine talk, including the interview side of things coming up next.
Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you could use to bet everything from the NBA Finals MVP to who's going to hit the one out of the park. I still bet anybody who's on the Celtics. That's what I would do. Visit fanduel.com/locked on and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
We are going to get to our new nemesis of the week and new poll question later in the show. On tomorrow's show, we are going to be talking to Shang Peng of San Jose Hockey Now about Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks. And our poll question is semi related to that. So stay tuned. And we've got our mailbag later in the week. So get those questions in. Getting back to the scouting combine, I think, there are two things that people pay attention to a lot besides the physical competitions, or they're not really competitions, I guess. They're
Hmm.
assessments that take on some competitive edge to them. But the interviews is the most important, I think, part of that. And we talked about that last week. What was the kind of word on the street in terms of who was getting a lot of interviews and who the Flyers were talking to and all of that?
Yeah. So as far as breadth of interviews, and the one thing I want to say about the interviews, because I see a lot of talk about it online, um, these interviews count more than what happened during the year. During the year, teams visit guys. Yes, they interview. They may have a short Zoom, whatever. But these are the long, in depth, delving ones with the special questions that they bring. And these could take up to an hour. They don't have that kind of time during the year when they meet with the players. So I want to point that out. So looking at it, there were some guys that definitely had like 29, like Maxime Massé. We've talked about him on the show. He had 29.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
yeah, when you had 29, you're pretty sure the Flyers were one of them. Uh, one of the oddities was a few of those guys that had like 29 uh, seemed like Tampa didn't talk to them. Tampa doesn't have a lot of picks, so maybe
Well,
that's.
true.
But I mean, it doesn't mean they won't trade into the draft, and they certainly have draft intel. But I just, that was one of the things that stood out. What was interesting is a couple of guys who you really kind of look at as second and or third, fourth rounders. John Mustard had 23, which I think is a lot. I think he'll be a second rounder. Camille Bednarik had 24. Again, think that's kind of interesting. And Lucas Van Villay had 16, and he's probably a third rounder, but he also was injured. So that was something
Right.
where injuries definitely are affecting some of the guys, and I can go further with that down the line here. Berkeley Catton spoke with 22, and since he's a top 20 candidate, that's like most of those teams that could draft him and a few that probably couldn't. So, you don't always get to ask everybody uh, exactly how many, which teams they spoke to. So that's also a thing. So, but, a lot of defensemen were getting the lion's share of interviews.
That is really interesting. As far as the Flyers go, could we read any tea leaves from who they talk to?
Yeah, yeah, and of course, look, I fully expect the team to either negate what I've said or say, "Well, we don't know." It's a chess game. All of this is
Of
liars.
course.
It's all liars poker and a chess game. But Carter Yakimchuk, definitely spoke with him, and I got him after the whole big scrum, and he told me the Flyers, and he had a really big smile on his face, and kind of was like, "Yeah." So I have a feeling he likes them, and it wouldn't shock me if the Flyers really like him. Now, sometimes teams will not interview with a player, right, and still take him, but it's rare, and I mean, I'm sure they probably spoke to some during the year and don't interview him here, but he's a guy that fits their profile. So
Yep.
there's no way they're not interested in him in some way, shape, or form. That's just, you know, that's the way I put that together. Uh, Teddy Steeg is an interesting one because the Flyers did talk to him. And so what I could put together from that one would be uh, maybe the second pick in the first round, or maybe even their second round pick if they feel like he'll still be there, which he might. So, Stiga would track well with the Flyers simply because he just does everything well and he's a gamer. And he's a guy that, when you need points, you need a goal in these big tournaments, he's always come through. We talked about him a lot. Um, Now Leo Celine Wallenius is an interesting one because he might be at the end of the first round. So he could be their second pick if they decide.
Correct.
Or he could still be that guy that slips and they get in the second round. I think he'll play in the NHL. I don't know what his superpower is yet, though. I've watched him in the Five Nations. I've watched him before. I think he's, a confident kid, but I don't know if he's more than just a good puck moving defenseman with speed. I don't know if he's more than that yet. That's the thing about him. Lucas Pedersen spoke to the Flyers, a good center. He could be one of their second round
Yep.
options. And I think he's a great second round option. I watched him in the Five Nations. He still has some muscle to put on. When you see these guys in their cap sleeve shirts, you could see. And so, yeah, I think there's room for improvement, but he has good shoulders. Tanner Hendricks, another defenseman they spoke to. I think he's for, later. And so that's another guy just to kind of keep an eye on. And yeah, that was it for the main guys. And I'm pretty sure they spoke to Catton. Like I said, if 20 teams spoke to him, they definitely spoke to him. There'd be no reason not
Yeah.
to. So that's my report on that. Again, you can't ask every player, and so you just have to read into them. Sometimes you have to look at their body language. Sometimes you have to look at what they give you. As an example, I have an interview with Lucas Van Valley, who said that a couple teams that were local came back and saw him twice. Like they saw him during the year and they came back and they saw him and they said, "We like what we see." So he gave me more clues than some other guys. And so, yeah, it all depends what they give you. Because sometimes the agents want that information out there because it helps the client get picked in a different spot, or it creates, some conversation between other teams. And then sometimes they don't. Like there were a few of the Euro players that just did not want to divulge how many teams they spoke to. They were like, "No, I'm going to keep it to myself," and that's fair.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it seems to me that when all of this information starts coming out in like dribs and drabs, that people want to read a lot into it. And to some degree, they're right, because who a team talks to does mean a lot. But at the same time, you never know how the draft board is going to go, and it could
No,
completely be unexpected. So I think it's fun, though, to speculate based on what we
it
hear from
is.
the combine.
It is. I mean, look, there are some times that teams are interviewing a player because maybe they'll get him down the road, but this isn't the NFL. What I've found over the years is most of the time, if a guy slots where a team could take him and they interview him, it means they have some sort of interest.
The other big aspect that people like to follow is what are the weirdo interview questions that
Yeah,
teams ask these guys? And I think, Montreal has asked, "What animal are you?" in the
and they
past.
still
They have
were. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they did it again this year. I think that one's weird and it doesn't seem to be helpful to me, but what do I know? They seem to like it. But I think the weirdest one that came out of this year was Utah asking me, "What's your Uber rating?" question.
Yeah, I'll be honest, when that was a big discussion, I walked away. I just did. I just like, I don't even care. Like I did, I just had better things to do. But it's funny. And Zane Perek said he was like a 4.92 or something. And I had to look mine up. Mine's like a 4.83. I thought I should be higher. Like I was surprised, but it made me look at
Yeah.
mine. But yeah, it's fine. I mean, I get they're trying to, grasp at any little thing. There was also, what your Snapchat score. I didn't even know Snapchat was still a thing. I thought it was over. So that was another one that Zane Perek talked about. The Avalanche were interesting. Guys would not divulge, but they had a bunch of board games and they were playing them against
Hmm.
people in the room. And I so this one I have to completely speculate. I'm going to guess maybe like Battleship. I would think Battleship is one that you could play quickly and maybe just see, how somebody's strategy is. Connect Four, I think you could do quickly, right? Where you pop those things in the top and kind of, see if someone could figure that out. Um, Battleship
Listen,
Connect.
I would be in for hockey players playing Settlers of Catan, but that would be way too long.
Yeah, I'm just thinking ones that they could do in like 15 minutes, because they're not going to take up the whole
Right.
meeting with it. So Connect Four, Battleship. Maybe they had a fun one like, well, Light Bright. You wouldn't consider a board game. I don't even know if it's around anymore. Maybe Operation.
Yeah.
Maybe Operation because you got to have a little nimbleness in the
Yeah, a
hands
little
there.
dexterity there.
You got to have
Yeah.
some
That would
dexterity.
be fun.
Yeah, those are some of the ones that I thought about.
Or like Jenga or something like
Jenga,
that.
yeah, I could see Jenga. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But the big thing was there were a lot of players. There was less media than usual because the Stanley Cup was going on at the same exact time, the same exact day as the important day for the players. So that was something. There were quite a few players that couldn't participate, like Beckett Seneca couldn't participate, but he did interview. Another player, and I can't remember who it is right this minute, had a sling on his arm. Adam Yurchek could not participate still. He is still not even hit the ice. So whatever
Wow.
that injury was in December, um, it really hit him for a loop. So I think it probably did affect him. Guys who missed games too, teams were very. It seemed like they were pretty understanding about it. We're going to be talking about one of them at some point, but they were pretty understanding about it. Like they understand, hey, and like Lucas Van Villay as an example. I haven't put up the interview yet, but he said he played. I think it was a high ankle sprain when he was over in the world.
Wow.
So that's pretty gutsy
Yeah.
to do that. So you have to take that into account if a guy's not, pulling the numbers as they say. So yeah, these guys, I give them credit. A lot of them really wanted to do well. A lot of them did whatever practice they could. I felt like Dickinson was cool because he had just gotten done playing, but he's really competitive and said that he was looking up on the board and wanted to know exactly what he was getting for everything because he wants to be the best at everything. And I think that says something about him. So I think yeah, the guys who and there was talk that maybe Perek wasn't going to do it, and then he did it at the last minute. Also for the same reasons because he had just gotten done playing. So yeah,
All right.
give those guys credit because that means they couldn't prepare at all.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out in the draft itself, and we'll be talking about some of those guys that we haven't yet even further. Coming up next, we've got our new weekly poll question and our nemesis of the week. Our new poll of the week. Last week, we talked about which prospect was most likely to crack the lineup for the Flyers next season. And on tomorrow's show, we're talking to Shang Peng, who covers the San Jose Sharks, who are in a rebuild. The Flyers are in a rebuild. So just trying to see what y'all out there think about the teams around the NHL that are in rebuilds and who are you most impressed by. So your choices will be the Flyers, of course, the Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Anaheim Ducks, and the San Jose Sharks. If you have another team you think is doing a better job who's in a rebuild, you can put that in the comments, and we look forward to your results. Link to that poll, which is over on our YouTube channel, in the show notes. We also have a link to our updated draft tracker in the show notes. We'll add today's show as an overall draft episode talking about the combine. Our nemesis of the week. Now, last week I talked about being nervous that big Flyers news might break while I'm on vacation. As you might be able to tell, if you are watching this on YouTube, I have a different background than usual, and that is because I am on a said vacation. And so I got to see the Phillies play in the London series, which was a lot of fun. But that being said, I think it's time to move on to the next nemesis. And for me, it is a 100% Washington Capitals for buying cap friendly and taking it away from us. What a like I the expletives I would like to be saying right now are just plentiful. I am so angry. It is such a good site. And I know there are other sites out there that do some similar stuff, but my brain and my eyes were so trained to the cap friendly layout and where to go for different things and transactions and buyout calculators that it's going to take some time to learn a new site. And I just hate this cycle, but at the same time I'm impressed with the work that they've done on the site, and they deserve to get some rewards for it too. So I have mixed feelings, but mostly sad.
Yeah, no, I get it. My nemesis is at an event like this for the combine, and there are 100 guys there a lot of times, and you're interviewing. Most people are interviewing probably 50 or more, or close to 50, right? Ask some funny questions. These kids, these are young guys that will answer anything. Don't always go with the serious. Cole Hudson started to get into something and talked about him being 40 years old. I said, "Aren't you going to play when you're 40?" And I'm not sure he really got the joke. He still sort of he didn't crack. Like he still gave a straight answer on it, but other people laughed. And sometimes you need some levity, especially in a long day. The other one that was really good was Brody Zemer, because he
Hmm.
is. I already know what kind of personality he has. I've interviewed him before, so I asked him about being at the Mall of America because he's from Minnesota. If you go there, where do you go? And first he said Lululemon Lemon, and then he said a candy place, and so we got into a little candy talk. That's the kind of stuff they need that after like a whole day of exercising and everything. So keep that in mind for next
Right.
year. Some lighthearted questions are good.
Yeah, gives them a chance to show their personalities too.
Yes,
And I'm sure like a lot of them make jokes in the locker room,
absolutely.
and let them be funny, let them be bright and charming, and I think that'll do the league a lot of good. So
Yeah, like
I
Beckett
agree with
Seneca,
you there.
yeah, like with Beckett Seneca, I mentioned you've probably had to buy all new clothes. Like, how often does somebody have to like
Right.
buy all new clothes in like 6 months?
Yeah. All right, that will do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back tomorrow talking Flyers and Sharks. We have a potential trade we suggested in that conversation, so excited for y'all to hear that. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions for us, you can send them in on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows like Locked On NHL. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.